We are in the information economy. And what that means is that the words that you speak are the data that you create every day. And what you want to do is create the biggest network you can. And that means you're maximizing your connections across all forms of communication Monday to Monday. And that's what we're going to talk about next with Stacey Hanke. So I love the subtitle of the new book, Maximizing Connections. I think that is a huge idea in our economy today. And so many people we've talked about before haven't gotten on the train yet. They know they need to, and they need a coach. They need somebody to influence them and get them going. How is your organization doing that? Break it down for me. I know you do a lot of talks.
Yes.
You're a national speaker, you're award-winning. Tell me how you're doing that there, and then let's get into your team and what they're doing.
We're breaking it down for clients depending on the type of interactions that they're having.
Right.
The big one is the struggle with how do you connect virtually?
Oh, yeah.
We hear that all the time. How do you connect when you're not always seeing your people? Those probably are the top two. And the criticalness of it, and I think the last couple of years have proven this, there's only so far that you can make a connection virtually. And I know some people aren't going to like me saying that. And I'll give you some proof around that. I was working with a client the other day, and he's a partner at a very large firm. And he's struggling with people not coming back at all to the office. So he's got a combination. Some people are there, some people are not. And he said, when I look at my career path, what got me to be a partner is not the messages that I sent via email. It's not the text messages that I sent. It's the moments when we were sitting in a conference room with other leaders. And I would watch what I liked in leaders, what I didn't like, what I never wanted to be, who I didn't want to be, who I wanted to be. And he said, there's no way I would be who I am today without those connection experiences. And that's what we mean by like making connections. How are you doing it meaningfully that you never feel like you're wasting someone's time? Because whoever you're trying to connect with had how many people before you try to connect with them? The bar has been raised on how do you break through all the noise this person has in their head.
Right.
The noise from messages they previously had, what they're thinking about their task, their family life, getting home that night. There's so many layers now that connection, I think few people do it well. But if you do it well, that's what's going to have you stand out. And if you stand out, influence happens.
Right. And I know there's some pillars in there. And one of them I always think of because it's knowledge, but knowledge economy. The idea, somebody said this recently, I think it was George Gilder in a Life After Capitalism. And the idea is that you're not actually paying for gas, you're paying for the knowledge and the ability to do something. So we think of executives today, they're running large corporations and they have that knowledge base.
Right.
And now they've got to add things to that to deliver it. It needs a delivery mechanism.
Yes.
And so tell me about your training and what you do with that.
There's two pieces to it because I think connection means not only your delivery, how someone experiences you.
Yeah.
Things like, do you look at people when you talk? I know it sounds just so common sense, but are you physically come across as you truly care? You're communicating with empathy, which ties to the connection engagement.
Right.
The other side of it is your message. Now more than ever, every single word you speak matters. Because the words you use either determine your listener feeling like, oh, you understand me. You're in my lane. My team, we talk a lot about addressing your listeners' why. Why should they care? Why is this interaction happening now? Why is this important or should be important to them? And when those are our approaches, we take those two approaches, and how we do it is, we've talked about this in the past, is increasing their awareness first of where are they? And then based on their personality style, where do they want to go? We have to figure out the skills to help them get there. That's also part of that elevation.
That's really amazing. And there are, I read a lot. I try to get a lot of concepts. We've talked about full stack marketing. That's a kind of philosophical concept for me. And I've run through a bunch of Donald Miller learning right now and getting my head around it. But what you're talking about literally needs to be studied, which is why the book is so important, because it's hard for people to, I think, to understand that these are steps that eventually lead to an outcome. And I think we all know what the outcome is. We know influential people. Like that's who we think of. They are the ones that drive the economy.
Right.
And what you're saying is you're offering that now in training and an awareness to really the entire workforce, which is the game changer for the time we're in.
It's breaking it apart. You've heard me do this before. I use so many sports analogies or anything that really requires muscle memory. No one ever goes to a golf lesson and plays 18 holes. Okay, go play. But we go into work every day, whether it's at home or you do go to an office, and communicate, lead this meeting, do this sales pitch. No one's ever really said, okay, let's take the golf club and we're just going to figure out first which golf club to use. Like, no one's ever really broken it apart. And that's the feedback that we get a lot from, especially an executive level, where they'll say, no one's ever given me this feedback. No one's ever explained to me, why am I not getting the results I want to get? And they think it's because, well, maybe the PowerPoint deck didn't have enough information on it.
Right.
It's really backing it up to call it basic, but here's the deal, no one's doing it. I remember this was a couple years ago. We were doing a workshop for a group of advertising professionals that were doing pitches. And we're getting to the portion of the workshop where we're talking about how to pitch and how to put your deck together. And then how do you deliver? How do you deliver with the deck? And the VP, all of a sudden, he says, I finally got it. We spend all this time on our message and putting the deck together. When we pitch in front of the client, we never think about our delivery. And what does the client see? The client sees the delivery. They don't see the amount of time we put in our messaging and our deck. I feel we've got it backwards. And it's no one's fault. It just simply comes down to we've never given thought on how do we communicate? How do we connect, or how don't we? Because how you show up, it'll either enhance your connections or it will jeopardize it.
Right. And you've walked the talk. I mean, you have how many speaking, like I'm talking, you've spoken in front of
a lot.
That's like a lot. I've been in rooms where, there were just, you can't even count how many people.
Yeah, when
and
you've done
you've done that time and time again. So what is it like? And that kind of is the secret. You've sort of like gotten in the zone of what it is to, and we were talking about it, you just did one, and the energy level, your body reacts to it. But like what you're saying is people don't put that kind of time into it. And therefore, when they stand up in front of people, it's what happens? What does that look like when people aren't ready?
Don't let me forget that. I'm going to back it up to a little support of this. Is I really believe that there's one thing in life that you have control over: your development and to some degree your reputation. I also know that my reputation enters this building before I ever get there. My reputation enters the Zoom call before I ever arrive, because my client sees my name on their calendar. And what are they thinking? And I really have always felt I want to never waste anyone's time. That when they see me coming or they see me on their calendar, they get excited or they know that it's going to be fun, it's worth their time. That I don't know if that's just part of my DNA or whatever. But I bet everyone listening to this podcast, who wants to show up to a meeting and think, I hope I bore you to death. I hope you so want to end this meeting before we even get. But they don't know they're doing it.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my backbone, and now I forgot what you asked.
No, that was it. It's essentially putting people. I think sometimes to get better at something, you kind of have to be honest, and that is part of your program of like watch yourself on film.
Yes.
If you see yourself, you're going to see what you want to change, and yes, that is hard. But it's worth it.
Yeah.
Kind of the thing. But you set that up where people need to own the fact that not only is that something you can do and it's really enjoyable, but it's your value in the economy right now.
It is. And it's, to me, when I'm on a stage or I'm one-on-one or I'm in a sales call, what you see right here is pretty much what you always get. And you know that. You've interacted with me a lot. I always think about, what can I do to make this worth their time? Because they don't have to be here. They made the choice today. So it's always, what do you want to leave behind? How do you want people to feel about you? And you've got that choice to decide what is your personal brand.
Yeah. Well, tell me personally how you've done that, because I honestly, I should have just blown. I cannot believe you just explained what happens here? When we know you're coming in, everybody gets here, early or,
Aw,
I mean,
I love it.
there are all these, my wife was cutting tulips and putting red tulips on your table last night.
I saw that.
She goes to get, there's a reputation that precedes you. And I think
that made my day.
that's not an accident. And tell me about how can somebody own that? How can somebody get a hold of that? I'm sure read the book is the ideal, but tell us how we can do that so we can get a bit of a taste of it.
Just off the top of my head, if I was thinking, well, how would I do that? I first would really sit down and think about how would I define my reputation? What do I want people to think of me? That's just where I start.
Right.
And that really is where I started before I started the company. What's the reputation? Number two, and I still do this, and it's so tough to do it. I go to people I know are going to tell me the truth, which is usually my family.
Right.
And I'll ask them, what is one word that describes me? Then I'll take it to another level, and we might get on a sales call, and I have one of my team members on there. I'll say to them beforehand, or if my husband's in the background outside the Zoom window, right? I'll say to him, here's how I want to come across: trustworthy, confident. Would you listen? Pay attention to the background. When am I not coming across that way?
So you set the mark, and then you basically work to get you exercise, try, and you get feedback on that, and you keep adjusting. And there's a lot of things that you can get coached on to get you to where you're going.
Right.
It's not just, blunt force trauma. You can get there.
Exactly. I mean, no one can take that away from you.
Right.
And it's one thing when times are tough. I always think about, do I have integrity in how I come across, that I know this is what is true to me?
Right.
Then it doesn't matter what other people think.
That's exactly
because you
right,
will
right.
break through that.
Yeah.
But just want people to have the feel good that, when I walk away, they say, oh, it just makes me feel good.
Yeah. Are there, not to sit in certain name drop, but are there people that you really look up to, that you see in the market that other people can see, they're visible, to think about that? Like, hey, these are people that have worked hard at what they do. I know we've talked about some people, when there's people in our network that have changed our lives just because of their influence. But is that where do people aspire and see it in the marketplace? Like, what are the examples?
I think it's a personal choice, because when you say about names, I have several people that if I listed them, I look up to them for certain reasons.
Yeah,
it's not just, so I'm just going to throw one out there. Tony Robbins, right? And again, I don't like all the stuff he says, but I've experienced his workshops. And after seeing that, I'm like, whoa, that guy is consistent. There is hands down. And then it might be someone else in my personal life, one of my leaders or my executives that I work with. There's one in particular that I'm thinking about right now, and she'll walk into the room of her team, and I can feel it. And a lot of it is her message always is consistent with how she shows up. And that message is always all about them. Why are we developing you? Why is this important for you? What I will do for you. There's none of this I. It's you. It's we. It depends on, that's why I think you should go back and figure out, well, what do you want for your reputation?
That's right.
And start looking for it and listening for it. Because there might be several people that you admire where, I don't really like their style of delivery, but I love the way they tie their message together. Or, they're not really a good storyteller, but I love the way they make me feel. But you've got to start first on be clear, have clarity on what you want. Then I think you're more likely to find it versus being blurred by it.